Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. My name is Grant Walters. I'm the Director of Educational Programs at the Hawaii Central Office in Columbus, Ohio. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Today is a webinar a virtual roundtable reserved for our mid-level professionals. We really thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules. We know things on campuses right now are busy, they're complicated. So we're hoping that you find this space today created for you to be useful. I have an excellent panel of individuals who are joining us today to share some perspective and expertise, but also to answer some of your questions that you might have that you would like answered and have feedback and information from other professionals. So as we go through the webinar today or the virtual roundtable, we'll address those in due course. Just a few pieces of housekeeping before we get started. We have a lot of online resources that we've developed over the past several months for our members in Aku Hawaii. There's the online community where you can engage with other professionals. People find it incredibly helpful to go on there. And if you have questions or want to learn how other people are doing things on campuses, wanting to get feedback or perspective, this is a great place to do that. And you can log on using your Aku Hawaii login, and it will take you to that place. There are different topics you can post on, or there's a general forum as well you can use to gain information. And so we encourage everybody to use that. And we find that responses are very timely. People are really participatory and give lots of great insight and feedback. So we encourage you to use that. We also have a list of COVID-19 resources. So everything that we've learned throughout this public health crisis as it impacts higher education and impacts residence life and housing in particular, we've developed a list of resources on our website that are available for housing and residence life professionals and our members to access at any time. So we encourage you to take a look at those as we've developed them, and we hope you find something useful and helpful there. We also have YouTube recordings. So every webinar, virtual roundtable, and other session that we have recorded over the past several months, and we tend to do about 2 to 3 of these weekly. So if you're interested in looking back on past recordings and thinking you might have missed something in the past or want to learn more about different topics or see different presenters, that's the place to do it. So you can go to our website, and we have a very wide variety of recordings available for you to access at any time on demand. First of all, we want to thank you again for being here. Support from our member institutions is really vital right now to keeping our association moving, but also to contributing to the knowledge and understanding of our profession as it stands right now in these very, very challenging times. And so we thank you for being here, and thank you for participating. I have 3 panelists today that I'm going to introduce, and I'm going to let them speak a little bit more about their roles. We have Aja Holmes, who is the Senior Associate Director of Residential Life at Cal State University Sacramento, or Sacramento State. Dee Goins, who's the Director of Residence Life, Housing and Conference Services at the University of North Texas at Dallas. And then Andy Johnson, who's the Director for Operations and Outreach, Housing and Residential Education at the University of South Florida. They're here today. These folks are also a part of the Mid-Level Leadership Institute committee that has been working for the past year. Obviously, we canceled the last Mid-Level Leadership Institute, but we're hoping to be able to bring these folks on board again for 2021. But they have a tremendous amount of insight and experience to share with you all today. So welcome to them, and thank you to them for being here for sure. A couple of other sessions. Again, this is a conversation-based roundtable. It's not a structured webinar where we have a set presentation where we deliver slides and then we end everything. So there's opportunity for engagement. And we want you to connect and be a part of this as well. How you can do that is you can press the Q&A button, which is located on your Zoom menu, and you can submit questions there to be answered. We're hoping to get to most of these today. We're limited to about an hour, but if we get questions that we're not able to answer live on air, we'll also refer those to our panelists, and hopefully we can answer some of those later on afterward. But we'll try to get as many of those answered and incorporated into the program as we possibly can. If you are chosen, we may select a few people to speak live just because there's a lot of people attending. That might be difficult to do, but if we do call on you, I'll unmute you. And if you can, state your position, your institution, your name, and also your question and comment. And please also do that in the Q&A section as well, just so we can address you personally and keep track of where the questions are all coming from. If you have any other questions, you can also access me via the chat button. If you have a technical question or some issue that's going on, just let us know. Today's session is being recorded, and we'll put this and make it available on the Aku Hawaii website as well in our recorded YouTube webinar sessions. for you or one of your colleagues to access later on if they were not able to join us for today. So we're hoping you find that useful. And that's it. We're going to get started. So again, our panelists, one of the things that I'm going to ask them to do is just again introduce themselves, but also talk a little bit about how they engage with mid-level staff at their institution. And so we're going to start right now with Andy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andy Johnson. As Grant said, I'm the Director for Operations and Outreach at the University of South Florida. A couple of my primary responsibilities is going to be the occupancy management of our facilities, as well as the marketing communications, and then our housing services, which provides our 24-hour, our service desks and our mail services. I'm also responsible for the technology and assessment within our areas. And so to answer the question, some of the ways that I've been engaging with my staff is right now our institution is only at phase 2, which means that we are only permitted to have 50% of personnel back on campus. And so I only have 1/3 of my team right now on campus working on a regular basis. And so the rest of them are still working remote. So my assignments team and my communications teams are still remote and going to campus just when they absolutely need to. So, so maintaining contact with them through Teams is vital. I probably see them more now than I did when I was traditionally on campus. A lot more checking in on how things are going. But I have a fantastic team, and so I really can't say that we have too many. I have too many concerns. I think some of the things that we've had to work through a lot is a lot of change. Where we are heading down one path, and then all of a sudden we're making a slight left. So I think that's keeping them up to speed. And sometimes when they're not just down the hall, right, I actually have to call them or have to type out a message. It's a little different dynamic. So I think that's probably one of the biggest ways that we've been able to maintain is through the Teams environment. So that's probably, I think, my most effective way, other than seeing them once a week when I the housing services team when I go to campus. So.
Fabulous. Thanks, Andy. We'll go with Aja next.
Hi, my name is Aja, and I'm the Senior Associate Director for Residence Life here at Cal State Sacramento. And I think in addition to what Andy said in terms of using the different virtual platforms that we have, we've also been able to try to utilize in terms of not only Zoom, but also Teams, but also utilize our organizational leadership office to maybe doing some very targeted professional development for our staff members. And so we are trying our best not to do too much new things and stuff like that, but we're going to be making sure that all of our leadership team is strength-based, have their strengths, and we're going to be doing a strength-based professional development throughout the semester with those folks there. So we wanted to add a little bit of that there. That's one way that we're trying to engage with our mid-level staff members and making sure that we kind of have some type of professional development out of this pandemic that we're going on right now. But we're also utilizing Teams in terms of sharing of documents back and forth, and also to our Zooms. And so at the beginning of this, we would have 2 Zoom meetings a week with the leadership team to making sure that we're all getting ready for the week and getting ready before we go into the weekends. We wanted to make sure of that. There we had those meetings. And I think, and also too, just a way to kind of have that constant communication has been making sure that we can easily schedule those meetings because we miss those, hey, let me go to your office to ask you that quick question. So we set up a virtual office to where we can log in and kind of see, meet at the virtual office if you have that quick question. And also to some other people may have the same question as well. And so we provided that space and an opportunity for those folks too.
Perfect. Thanks, Aja. And Dee, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dee Goins. I'm the Director of Residence Life Housing and Conference Services at the University of North Texas at Dallas. Today it is not hot in Dallas, so it's a great day. It's actually a little chilly, so that's why I have this jacket on. Our engagement with mid-level is critical right now. I think there's this feeling of maybe what is the administration keeping from us, and maybe what is our department keeping from us. But to avoid all of that, our mid-level managers are at the table when we're having those conversations and making those decisions to try to be as transparent as possible. We also utilize Microsoft Teams, and as much as people are zoomed out, we try to utilize Zoom on the more social side, the fun things that we do, maybe some virtual happy hours or scavenger hunts or whatever that may look like. But I think right now, our mid-level staff is critical. And I think that mid-level managers are automatically qualified. Anybody in student housing and residence life is automatically qualified for that next role after working through a pandemic. And so I'm grateful for our critical and essential workers on the mid-level, and making sure that our mid-level staff feels comfortable and safe returning to campus is my top priority.
Great, thanks, all. So one of the questions that I think we can start with today is just talking a little bit about ways in which you're all supporting staff. And Dee sort of started that conversation about, ensuring that they're around the table for conversations. We've had a few questions that have sort of asked about support and ways in which mid-level staff are being incorporated into plans, into actions and things like that on campus. If you could all maybe just share a little bit about, what that's looking like on your campus and some of the things that you're all implementing in terms of value where that's concerned. And I guess, Andy, we can start with you and move down the list again.
I'm sorry, you said you're starting with me? Okay. So a couple of things come to mind. Number one, before anybody was allowed to check in with us, we partnered with Student Health Services to receive a negative COVID results test. And so that process flowed through our SHS office, but then the clearance, the yes or no, came back to us. And so my associate director was absolutely critical in maintaining that data and integrating it into our system in a very quick manner. And so I really rely on his expertise in how we can do that effectively, and make sure that it's in a kind of a protected environment, right? So only need to know people have that type of information. I would say probably the other one that comes to mind is my assistant director for housing services. We have isolation space that has been identified, and I really relied on her and her team to make sure that we have enough conference linens, right? Because we use biodegradable, disposable linens that we don't have to worry about washing, to make sure that keys are in place when we have folks moving in there, that the work order gets submitted to turn the space and, in our timeline, and that keys are restocked in there. And now we are having to change that protocol a little bit to incorporate mail delivery services on items. And so knowing that she knows that depth of her operation much more than I do, right? I have surface level, this is where I want to go, this is what I want to do. But she actually has written a lot of the procedures and how we're going to accomplish those things. And so it's been fantastic in that aspect. And in both cases, have been able to showcase their talents to our assistant vice president, right? Because I'm calling on them as experts. And so I think my last one is in my communications area. Right now, there's a lot of conversation around what can we do to increase our spring occupancy numbers. And so I'm meeting with University Communications and Marketing. I'm meeting with the Provost's office and trying to combine all of that input, and then working with my assistant director of communications to develop a very strategic and tactical plan of increasing our occupancy through our marketing efforts. And so there's a lot of folks that want to help and want to be a part of that. And so trying to help bring all of that into congruency has been important. And she has been a critical part of that in developing that plan. So I think really engaging with them, allowing having them get more exposure to executive level leadership, being able to showcase their talents. Those are some of the ways that I've been able to work with my team to really be successful in such a trying time.
Great, thanks, Andy. How about you, Aja?
Well, a couple of things that we have done in addition to everything that Andy has said, we have a app on our website that actually has people doing a self-assessment and wanted to make sure that if your self-assessment doesn't come back with a nice check that you stay home. So we want them to do that. So we're encouraging all of our staff members to do that before they come to work. We are also still at smaller capacity in the office. I come in the office 3 days a week and I work from home 2 days a week. And so I'm in the office today. My residence life staff who are living in the residence halls, we have 4 of those folks who are here with us, and my assistant director is working from home 5 days a week. And so my assistant director, who is very process oriented and very detail oriented, it worked very well to write our Q&I, we call them Q&I, quarantine and isolation, our Q&I plan. And is very, very detail oriented. And I was able to kind of, pass it on to our executive director. And he was very impressed with that. It was very detail oriented. And so in terms of where are we placing the Meals on Wheels cart when we deliver the food, that's just how detail oriented it got. Like, who really cares that? But it was very important to put it in that document. And so we did that there. And we have made sure that we have 25 rooms for our Q&I rooms. 10 of those rooms are completely set up, ready to go right before classes start. And we're working on the rest of those and trying to figure out. And each time we have a roundtable with our CSU family, we learn more and more about what we should possibly be having in these rooms and what we should be doing differently. And so something's changing. I just got an email today that we're looking at some other more supplies that possibly need to be in the room to provide a very comfortable environment there. I'm the one who reaches out to the student if they're in Q&I. So we're reaching out twice a day just to make sure they're good. So we're trying to be able to communicate that there. And so I'm trying my best to work with my assistant director to be able to have them at some of these conversations. As Andy said, and as Dee said, so that it doesn't seem like that we're hiding something from someone because we didn't tell them this, but knowing that we didn't tell them that because it's going to change in an hour. And so it's hard to be able to communicate that when things are changing so fast and people really don't understand that. And we're trying our best to bring them along with there. In addition to that, we got tasked to create and work through a whole new position for students, because we have a small number of students who are coming to campus to participate in lab classes, nursing classes, theater classes, and music classes, a very, very small number. We created student safety ambassadors who are the ones with the gloved hand opening doors, making sure that folks have on a mask. They are outfitted in a green vest and a hat, and they're really excited to have these things. I saw one at the grocery store. I didn't engage, but they had their vest on still. I guess they just came from work. And they're in our academic buildings, being that first face for us and being that, making sure that because we are such an open campus, that anyone who's in those buildings are only Sac State affiliate folks, and wanting to make sure to provide that safety environment. And that was something that 2 of my residence life coordinators ran with. We gave them the task. We had to hire folks within a month to get this off the ground so that we were ready to go with that. But it also too had us working with different areas that we would have never really worked with in terms of our environmental health and safety area, our transportation folks, and also to our custodial folks on campus to be able to do that. So we got some opportunities to work with some other campus partners that we wouldn't necessarily work with.
Great, thank you. Dee, go ahead.
So we are a small campus, and so once we initially shut down in March and we started thinking about what the fall will look like, it was important for us to all be on the same page and all learn what each other's job was or job is in the event that any staff member had to quarantine or whatever the case may be. So we met weekly since April up until August, planning and as you all know, things can change by the hour. That was mentioned a few minutes ago. So just trying to be clear on controlling the things we can control. I think the staff morale always needs to be high. So reminding staff and encouraging staff not to get too excited about things beyond our control, and really being okay with saying that's above my pay grade. I'll take what comes to me and we'll work through that and navigate whatever we can control, and keeping the students' safety and security, and staff safety and security as a priority also. We all collaborated on drafts of a reopening plan, agreed on every single decision so that there's no room for misinterpretation of how we will operate as a department. We shared that with our senior administration, and they were pleased with it. Of course, sometimes administration wants us to operate based off of what they want us to have, or what they think we need, or what they think will work best for us versus what we know what's best for us and what our department needs are. So to Andy's point on really trusting staff in those positions to do their work and learn the process that they set forward to be successful in their job. So it has been about collaboration, communication, transparency, and making sure that we're all on the same page. It also has opened the door for some cross-campus collaboration when 85% of classes are online. So now we're thinking about, well, what students will be on campus, and there will only be residents on campus. So now other departments, even on the faculty side, are looking to housing and residence life for program assistance, or we still want to do this engaging speaker, or we still want to offer this. Can you ask your residents if they want to come, type of thing. So really, I think campus, we have an opportunity to highlight really how essential and critical housing and residence life staff members are, especially at the mid-level, to kind of pull them up, pull everybody up. It's like, you know what I do in my position now. Let me introduce you to our other staff members who are in this particular situation. We're all have the same job because we all know how to do each other's job. And so giving some exposure to our staff members and then also other campus departments has been, I guess, the silver lining in terms of that staff development throughout this period.
Great. And some of you addressed some of these elements already, but we have a few questions from some of our registrants about, tips or tricks or things that, you're telling your staffs about stress management, knowing that the gravity of some of the tasks that they're doing in terms of managing, doing contact tracing or quarantine and isolation spaces and non-compliance and all those different things related to COVID-19. What are some things you're having your staff do to sort of manage that stress level, but also prioritize some of those tasks when everything feels very heavy and very serious right now? So I'll leave the floor open for any of you to address that and kind of talk about how you might be doing that or some of your perspective there.
I can answer that. Well, to start, for us, it has been looking at the job descriptions and cutting out what we would be doing if we had full occupancy. So now that we're at a reduced load, what on the current job description can be reduced or removed and replaced with a COVID operations assignment or backup plan. So trying not to add more, but more so a temporary replacement until we can, or if we get back into a normal swing of things. And then also asking for help if you need help or unclear on something, but then going back to learning each other's jobs so that anybody can fill in at any given point. So emphasizing the importance of, like, we really are a team now more than ever, and you have to feel it and you have to believe it because things have to get done. Even though we're not in person, there's still a remote aspect. There's still students on campus, and we still have an obligation to attend to their needs, and also make sure that the buildings stay open and stay up. So through encouragement and also replacing position responsibilities is how we've been getting through.
I can go. One of the things also too, as someone who I have been mostly coming on into office has been me, and so I have tried to find ways. Are there tasks that I can do on behalf of my residence life coordinators and bring them to them? For example, if we're creating flyers, can I go pick those up from the print services and bring those to them to their offices? Save them a trip over here to the office. Is there a task I can do? Can I talk to those students who are getting their second and third violation of not wearing their masks? And maybe we have, another conversation, and maybe I might be their last conversation, and they'll straighten up and fly right. And so I've been trying to find ways to be able to release some of that pressure from my live-in staff, because they're here every day. And not only are we also dealing with COVID, we're also dealing with fires and smoke, and I don't think we've had a really good deep breath of clean air in weeks now. And so in addition to that, kind of dealing with that. So as much as we were outside doing things and doing programming and eating outside, that's no longer the case. And so it's back to, going to pick up food and bring it back to, your space. So there's no outside eating because of the smoke in the air. And so I've tried my best to be able to figure out what are some things that I can do to relieve some of that pressure, some of that stress, and what tasks can I take off your plate. And wanted to provide that opportunity to have them, utilize me and my assistant director in that way.
I'm going to echo both of what Dee and Aja already said. I don't typically process the turns in our housing software, but there I am compiling data and processing turns in June and July, right? So that it could free my associate director and my assignments team up into doing what I need them to do, which is answer phones and emails and continue on with our assignments process. I work with a truly amazing and dedicated team. And I think the best thing that I've hopefully tried to do to help them is set boundaries. We have a very strong communications team, and they like to be very active on social media and respond to student inquiries and misinformation and parent inquiries and things like that. And so, maybe you can ensure that we set up boundaries to say, look, listen, we're not answering stuff after 6 p.m. on Monday through Friday, and we're not going to answer stuff on the weekend. If it's that important, then they will email our office, or they will call our office. My assignments team, some nights they'd walk in and there'd be 150 or 200 emails for a team of 4 individuals who also had other responsibilities. And so they would work all day long, and then they would go, well, I'm not doing anything tonight except watching my favorite show. And so I'm just going to answer emails. And then I would see them sign off on Teams like, okay, it's 9 o'clock, I'm done. I'm like, you've been doing this for 3 hours? Like, no, like you need to take a break and take a breath. And so really saying, you know what, you've worked an extra 10, 12, 15 hours this week doing miscellaneous things. I need you to take some time off. I need you to take care of yourself. And I think that's been the biggest thing that I've hopefully tried to do to help them is force them to take time off and not sign in, not do anything, just do whatever it is that makes them happy. We've also talked a lot about rotating on and off campus, right? Because I know some of my staff has expressed concern over being on campus when there's not a necessity. So I'm like, absolutely don't come to campus. If you can do your work remotely, then do that, right? And set up a schedule so that you don't have 5 people in at the desk and in the mail centers, right? If we only need 2 people for that day or 3 people for that day, and then figure out what that rotation schedule is. I think that has been a big piece. And then the information sharing. As soon as something is solid or is semi-solid, or even sometimes I'm just like, I've had this thought, can I share it with you? To be a part of that, I think has relieved some stress, because then they don't just get like here you go, make this happen. And being a part of that process has been a way to reduce some stress. But they've really stepped in and picked up for each other a lot, and have adapted to change very well. So I'm very proud of the team and that we worked with. So.
That's great. Thank you, everybody. We have had a question about plans and tasks that teams are completing remotely, and so the panel talked a little bit about this and some of the things that they just mentioned previously. I actually want to do a little crowdsourcing and see if anybody in attendance might want to share a little bit about if your institution is remote right now, remote learning. What are some of your professional staffs doing, and how are you managing it as a mid-level professional? So if you'd like to answer, you could just raise your virtual hand up on the Zoom app, and I can click on you and unmute you and have you share if you'd like to do that. So I'll just give you a couple seconds to respond if you'd like to. Okay, we have no sharers right now, which is okay. So we have a couple different questions that we can go through with the panel too. One of the questions that came through from Muriel Gammons at the University of Florida asked the question to the group about how you might be handling transportation for COVID positive and isolation spaces. So I'm not sure if that's something that anyone on the panel is currently dealing with, but if you'd like to contribute anything, feel free to unmute and chat about that. So.
We are utilizing our campus police for that and emergency medical response team, but our housing staff is not doing any transporting. And what was the second part of that question?
It was just what are you doing for transportation from each of those spaces right now? So that was
Gotcha.
perfect. That was perfect.
Cool.
So I'll say that we are not personally transporting. We will have the room ready. It will be set up, but it's usually a member of our care team, which is a very broad team, right? I mean, it's everything from student health services professionals to academic advocates to our director for residential education and so on and so forth, that would reach out and say, hey, you've been, usually it's SHS, you've been identified, we need you to go to isolation. Then we get notified as a part of a group on Teams, and where we keep our document and we just check in with each other about whatever assignment that is occurring. And then the student moves themselves. So we have designated moving bins that are probably 36 by 36 that if they needed to use, they can get from the isolation location, they can get their items, they can transport them. Most of them, I would say, are in a fairly close proximity of a few hundred yards. We do have one section of campus that's probably it's much longer distance, but these carts roll, so they can roll right on over to the isolation space, get checked in, and then move right in. But that's the way I took your question, Muriel. But I just wanted to say, if there was something that had to go off campus, then it's either through EMS, depending on that level, right through our university police, or the person can choose to isolate off campus, but then they cannot come back until we give them a clearance.
I have to say that the same thing, kind of piggybacking off what Dee and Andy said, is that we provide a cart for the student to move to isolation and put all their belongings in it and move themselves. And if they need to go off campus, we're utilizing our university police department, who is also helping us with the EMS and the ambulance taking over.
Great, thank you all. One of the things that I wanted to address too, recently, many of you might have seen that we published a document that talked about the transferable skills of live-in professionals. And I know many mid-level professionals are live-in as well, and may cover some of those live-in functions and their roles. And part of that in doing so was to help mid-level and upper-level staff advocate for their live-in professionals in ways that can be useful around not just their residence life departments, but other parts of the university. And so what I'd like to do is think about that for mid-level professionals and ask the panel a little bit about some ways in which the transferable skills of mid-level staff have been useful in other parts of the university or in other places where mid-level staff can offer their services and their expertise to be helpful around campus in advocating for students and doing good work right now. So I would love to hear some perspective that the panel might have in that area too.
So when this document came out, I immediately shared it with my whole team, and I said, look at this, everybody update their resumes today. So that way you have it, so you can be able to communicate what we've been dealing with for the past 6 months. In addition to that, when I talked about the student safety ambassador position, they immediately sought us out because of the fact that we have such a great work ethic in terms of with our RAs, and this is right up in our wheelhouse, you know. And so we were able to create this and hire those students and get those up and running, and they knew that we can do it in such a small time. And so I thought that's one of the things that they had already knew, because it's a natural, what we do naturally in over in residence life. And some of our trainings we were able to record and use from our RA trainings to use with our trainings for our student safety ambassadors. We train them in terms of confrontation, because we're going to have some of those students who are going to interact with them and not want to wear a mask for whatever reason. And so we need to be able to talk about that and give folks understand the policies and what the policies happens on campus. And so we were able to do that. And that was, you know, immediately because of the work that we have done and what we had already put in place, being that we're housing and residence life here on campus.
Yeah, we have been tapped by several departments. One in particular is campus activities, and so we are looking at some collaterals between our mid levels and campus activities and programming, and what that looks like for those who supervise hall coordinators in communities that, you know, face-to-face programming is critical in the first year halls. But looking at how we can pull off some programs with someone else's budget has been a positive for us, because students are still paying activity fees. And so how can we still capitalize on that and utilize those resources? So we're collaborating a lot with campus activities and also student conduct, setting our mid-level managers up to be the campus conduct officers, basically, because there's no other students on campus. And so always tying that into a professional development piece. And as I just said, pull out your resumes, update your resumes, get that done now. You are basically a conduct officer, a chief or senior conduct officer for the campus now. Even if you're acting in these roles temporarily, it's something that you need to highlight and that you need to sell yourself on. So it has been, what's the right word? It has been a surprise, I would say, because we cut out professional development funds because reduce occupancy. We have to make cuts to what we usually fund. So professional development was kind of like the third thing to be cut. But now it's like, what on campus can you do? How are you setting yourself up for that next role? And to get all of this experience in 6 months, and then now the fall semester, so almost a full year of this load that you weren't expecting, is going to do wonders for you in your professional career. So spending that, and then also supporting staff when they accept or decline those collateral opportunities.
I'll just add, because I mean, I don't have anything more to add to what y'all have said. I mean, I think there are so many transferable skills, and from an occupancy management assignments perspective, right? Teaching the software is easy, right? We can teach you how to operate the software, but the skills that live-in staff receive in customer service, in digging beyond just the surface of a request, right? And for example, we recently, in our cancellations, we've been asking people, well, tell me a little bit about why you're canceling, like what's going on, right? And if it's something that we can help them work through, if we can address a concern, that's the type of skill set we want to look for as we're looking for folks that are looking to explore other areas besides residential life. And so that has been fantastic. there's a way of thinking about folks who have that lens of being a previous live-in staff member that is different than someone who just comes in and is like, well, I've been working with software and databases, or oh, I know how to work the mail operations. I used to work at the United States Postal Service, or I mean, there's a student lens that comes with it. And so I think highlighting that in whatever position you apply for next is critical, right? Because just as Ajay and Zia said, conflict mediation and being able to be a team player and diving deep, those are things that I look for, because I know that those individuals are coming with a very wide breadth of experience and sharing those experiences. I love storytelling in interviews. Like, tell me stories, tell me things that you have done, how you have participated, impacts that you've made. Those are the things that I love to hear about, because that helps me give a better perspective than just what's on paper.
Great. Thanks very much, everybody. We have a question here from Pam Jacobs, and I'm sorry, Pam, I'm not sure what institution you're with, but she asks, do you have an issue with large group gathering or parties happening on and off campus? And if so, how are you addressing them, and are you addressing them?
We haven't had any issues off campus that I know of. On campus, we only have probably 30% of our usual occupancy per floors throughout the building. So we would know if anything was going on in the rooms. So no problems with parties, but gatherings, I hate to say it's a problem, but athletic team practices has become an issue for us, and what athletes do from practice, they practice off campus, and wherever they practice, from when they leave practice and come back to campus, whatever that looks like, I think there's some gray there where they may be caught up in gatherings, but that has been our biggest problem or our biggest gathering has been athletic teams, and that's been the bulk of our positive cases. And so it's that gathering has been the problem, but nothing like socially or residents being irresponsible. We haven't had to deal with anything on that side.
For us, we this past weekend, some of our students got into a suite and did a thing. So one of the things I think that it's going to be challenging for us is that our RAs are not entering rooms to handle confrontation. We're asking people to come to the hallway, and we're doing the same thing for our suites. And so it could be, a suite like, 5 rooms, and only one of those rooms was the one who actually participated in that. But the RLC is going to have to kind of meet with everybody and dig deep and figure out what's happening, because we're approaching it from the hallway. And so we're not entering suites for the safety of our staff members. We're not entering rooms for the safety of our staff members. And so it's going to take a lot more questions and a lot more conversation between the RLC, the hall director, and the residents of that suite, because we're going to then call everybody in to figure out what happened. So that way we can kind of get to the bottom of this. And it could be that only 1 or 2 of those rooms were a part of that, but everybody in the suite has to be a part of this meeting because of the fact that we're not able to go into the suite to figure out, what happened. So we're going to have to do that. So there's going to be some people who might have to tattletale, or we'll try our best to get to some of that. So that's something that we're dealing with this week. But we have been, for the most part, the residents have been wearing their masks. They have been social distancing, and this is only our second week of classes. Our first week of classes started the 31st. Everyone seems to be on board, everyone. And what I think is what's on our side is that the folks who have to live in the residence halls are the ones who have to be here, who need to be here. It is our foster youth. It is our students who are housing insecure. And they're taking this a lot more seriously than those who, I can just pack up and go home, And so I think that's important for us when we're dealing with our students to also know that.
We were the same way. We had a few Facebook posts that kind of got screenshotted and reshared, and that says, the original post was, here's my info. Contact me if you want. If we're looking together for some parties, I'll put you on the party list. And a lot of students, like I said, screenshotted that, send it back through our Facebook groups, and we're like, absolutely not. You see other schools shutting down and going home, and people like me do not have anywhere else to go. I'm asking, and you see a lot of accountability in there from the students, holding other students accountable, which was really, really awesome. I think we also had some early intervention from our Dean of Students, Dr. McDonald. She put out a post which we reshared in our Facebook groups, saying that this behavior is not tolerated. We are strongly discouraging it, and so it really was a strong message, and it has been reshared several times as new posts have come up. And so she did a fantastic job on getting out in front of it. And so I think so far what I know of is the worst thing that we've had is then in the first couple of days, we had some students that were wearing a mask, but they're in a kind of a quad area and bouncing a volleyball around. That was probably the most like gathering type thing we've had. And it's like so counterintuitive to what we try to do is building community is like, please just don't do that right now. Let's wait till next year. And so it's hard, but I will say that our residential education team has done a fantastic job of taking the community building online and working with teams and doing what on a platform that they're calling Bulls in the Cloud, and have just been fantastic with daily chats and competitive discussions on what's a better like junk food snack, and just like the most amazing things to get the community engaged. In the next couple of weeks, we'll have what we call house calls, and that's where folks can, residents can meet with academic advisors, they meet with deans, they meet with, various leadership positions, academic advocates, in typically what would be in a hall setting virtually this year, to have very open conversations about whatever's on our residents' minds. It's not really scripted. It's really free flow. I've participated in the last 4 or 5 years and have absolutely loved the experience. And so usually when you do an in-hall, it's about 30 or 40 per hall that will show up. But that's going virtual this year. And so they've been able to keep a lot of those staple programs together to make sure that we're socially distancing, but still building community. So.
Great, thank you all. And Pam is from Texas State University, so hi to everybody in San Marcos. Thanks for letting us know that. So we have about 10 minutes left in the session here, and I want to make sure that we leave some time for anybody in attendance to ask questions of the panel that we haven't addressed already. So if you'd like to submit something, you can do that via the Q&A function on your Zoom panel. You can also raise your electronic hand, and I can address you there, and you can ask your question live. We want to make sure we give you some time to be able to do that if anything has arisen since you've been in the room with us. So I'll just give you a few seconds to submit anything if you have it. Okay, so we don't have any immediate questions right now, but you can still continue to do that until we're finished up here. So I encourage you to do that, and I know the panel will be happy to answer them. So for the panel, I guess one of the things that I would love to hear from you all is just what sort of things are you encouraging your mid-level staff to do in terms of helping to continue to advocate for students, all the things that aren't necessarily COVID related, what sort of plans have changed in terms of, wanting to continue to connect with students, in what ways are they building community and still making that personal connection that I think is so important in the work that we do, but it has become tougher to do. What are some unique things maybe your staff are doing that you're really proud of and want to kind of feature and provide a shout out to?
I would say that while this sucks for us in this field, because we are the, I want to give you a high five or dap you up, or a student's having a bad day and you have a connection with a student where you're comfortable giving a hug. And so we're lacking that physical connection. I think we're now in the fall is where our staff maybe is starting to feel the hit or impact that students felt back in March when they had to move out. Like their world has shifted. So and from March until now, we still had to work. But now is a season where we would see students and greet students and welcome them back to campus, and it doesn't, just because it doesn't feel the same, like the work is still happening. But my staff is still comfortable meeting 6 feet apart from students in case of a crisis or emergency, whereas, they could have said, no, we don't want to meet, schedule a Zoom meeting or a phone call with me, and we'll handle it that way. But I'm proud of the staff that can still read emotions and still make themselves available to hear students that are going through things and really want to connect them to other members of the university. So while it is a pandemic and everybody's taking everything seriously, the needs of the students don't disappear because we're reduced occupancy. So the staff who is not, it's okay to be scared, it's okay to have fear, but the staff who really make themselves available and still point students in the right directions and lead them to other campus resources instead of just saying, here's the email address or here's the number that you can call, but really still giving our students their undivided attention, although they can't physically do that. So I'm proud of that. I'm also proud of my team for just showing up and not giving up on the process or our department, because it does feel like some decisions are being made where we don't necessarily have an input, but understanding what job security looks like during these times and really, I guess, being flexible and understanding, like, you may not want to do this, but this is kind of what we have to do to stay afloat. So and every day something could happen where I'm proud of a staff member. But I would say, we entered this field for a reason, and we know our whys. So why not continue to act on that and build on that and fulfill your own purpose or what our purpose is. Don't let the lack of physical connection stop us from being the best that we can be.
So I definitely have tried my best to work with our staff in terms of trying to find ways to, thank them, because we have just really been moving along and trucking along, and we're down staff members because of the fact that our occupancy is also down, and we didn't, fill the vacancies we were already did back in March. And we did our interviews, and we completely changed our whole search process online, and we pivoted really quick there, and we did really well. But we weren't able to hire those folks because of the fact that we have our lower occupancy. And so we're down some staff members. And so I'm really trying to find ways of what are we not going to do? We can't do everything that we've done in the past. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Everybody has had some type of trauma, and we have been, affected by this. But if you think that we can continue to do everything we would have done had COVID not happened, I think that we're setting our staffs up for burnout. We're setting our staffs up to be resentful. And I think we have to look at what is some of the things that we won't be doing that we can hold off on a year, so that way we can get back to, our occupancy, and we have more staff members, and we're able to kind of spread that load. Because right now we're down, 4 staff members in residence life. We're down a director of operations and conferences. And so people are taking on extra things, but we have to figure out what we're not going to be doing, so that way our staff members can survive.
Yeah. 110%. We've done the exact same thing as what are we not doing? We're supposed to move to you doing online RCRs this year. Yeah, that's not happening. There's a number of things that I'm like, that's just not important enough, and stressing that to my team. I think one of the things I was hyper aware of with my team and the toll it was taking on them was that we had a lot of folks that were upset that they were assessed cancellation fees when our classes went online. And we were clear in it that, it was specific coding from the registrar's office that you had to be primarily distance learning or all distance learning. Hybrids did not count as online learning because you had an opportunity to come to class. And there was a lot of anger directed towards my assignments team, and as they were fielding these phone calls from students and parents, and did not like our explanation. And it was like, well, we were very clear, and you have an option to change your course. Like, you need to talk to your advisor. And so it was, there was a lot of frustration there, and it took a toll on them, right? Mentally. And so just making sure that I was very aware of that. And we actually have a phone system that the university implemented a few months ago, and we jumped on it pretty quickly. It's called 5-9. And I was able to actually listen in to a lot of the phone calls that were coming and help to coach people through some of the things. And so it's been a difficult few months, and there's, just recognizing that from at least my seat, how difficult it was, some of the work that we were asking people to do, more work with the same resources, and then identifying, well, what do we not need to do in the future? I know it's been difficult. And so, I'm grateful for the patience that my staff has had with a lot of family questions. A lot of times there were questions that didn't even have anything to do with housing. Like, why isn't campus rec open? I have no idea. We don't even work in the same department. So, so it was things like that, that people were wanting to inquire about. And they were like, well, let me see well, tell me about my financial. I don't know anything about your financial aid. I don't even have access to those screens. You need to contact financial aid. But, I think the way that I hope that I recognized them and tried to help them understand the value of the work is that at the end of every meeting, at the end of every conversation I had with someone, that I thanked them. And it wasn't just hey, thank you for doing it. It was a truly heartfelt thank you, because I know what they were doing was hard, and there was no end in sight at the moment. So there still is no end in sight.
Okay. Well, we're coming to the end of our time on our virtual roundtable. So first of all, I want to thank everybody for attending. I just want to give the panelists a last couple of seconds if they want to add any other words of wisdom, other words of encouragement, final thoughts, or anything like that before we wrap up. So I'll just give them an opportunity to do that. And so you all have the floor.
Thank you, Grant. And thank you, everybody, for being here, to co-panelists. It's always a pleasure hanging out with y'all and talking with y'all. But I just want to say that in terms of, some motivational pieces, that winning is not optional. That's what I tell my team. Winning is not optional. We were told that we had to open, and so we're going to do the best that we can do. All of our processes, we are going to master them and still treat every student with kindness and respect, and we're going to win, whatever winning looks like for us. If there's a decision made that says that we have to close, we're gonna close smoothly, just as smoothly as we open. And so the decisions that are handed to you, take it and run with it, and just do the best that you can, and just win in everything, and know that winning is not optional. What success looks like for you or your institution could look totally different from another institution. So don't rob yourself of the joy that you have by comparing your institution or your situation to another school or another person, but just do you and win, whatever that looks like for you.
I echo what Dee said, but also too, looking at it from, we're not trying to hide information. It's changing so rapidly, so fast, and we want to let you know that we understand that it's frustrating, or you not being able to be a part of some of those decision making. And I think that we also have to look at the leadership. Our executive director is interim and became interim in May, June. And so I feel for this person as they're trying to, get, their dream position in the middle of a pandemic and, and stuff. And so just trying to best ways, how can we support, the leadership and some of those things that they're doing, and knowing that they're trying their best, and they're the ones that's meeting early in the morning and late at night and waiting on, things to come down from the chancellor's office, waiting for things to come from the president's office and stuff. And so trying our best to be able to give grace. So I think just, give the grace that's needed, because we're all definitely trying in this time.
I'm just gonna build on that, right? The level of work that has gone on nights and weekends and things like that, at least at my level and above, has been very, very busy. And I know a lot of things that don't always get the time that we need for our mid-level folks, but just know that we see you. We recognize the work that you're doing. It may not always get said as often as it should, but we see it. It's making a difference in our students' lives. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate that. Well, a couple of things. First of all, I spent 10 years as an assistant director of residence life before I came to Hawaii. So I know what your jobs entail and sometimes the complications, but also the really great stuff that happens. So I want to thank you for all the work that you're doing on your campuses right now. And thanks for the contributions you continue to make to Hawaii and for being here today. Very much appreciate that. Thank you to my three panelists for taking time out of their schedules as well to share some of their perspective and their wisdom. I really appreciate that. These are good folks. And so if you have any questions or other things, I'm sure they would love to hear from you. They've done some fantastic work for Hawaii and above and beyond as well. So thank you for doing that. A couple of other things to share with you all in the next coming few days or weeks or so here. We have upcoming virtual roundtables that will be available to you all. Again, this one will be posted on our YouTube channel, but tomorrow we're having one for senior housing officers. So if you are a senior housing officer, if you know one, if you know many, feel free to encourage them to come and take part in that as well. That'll happen tomorrow, Thursday, September 10th at 2 p.m. Eastern. Next week, we're going to have another one called Sustaining Careers in Student Affairs, which should be really fascinating. And so next Wednesday at 4 p.m. ET. And then next Thursday, if you are a late night person, a very much late night person or an early morning person, you'd like to come on at 3 a.m. Eastern and join us. We're doing it at a time that's friendly to our global member institutions, but we're doing one on future plans and contingencies for our global institutions. Some really fascinating stuff. So even if you can't join us live for that one, certainly take advantage of watching the recording as well and learning from our institutions outside of the United States. They have some great things to share as well. So those are the things that are up and coming. We'll always post new opportunities on our website. If you'd like to host a roundtable, if you'd like to be a part of one, if you have a suggestion for a topic, we'd love to hear about that. Our mid-level leaders are important to us, and we'd like to continue to build resources for you all. So if there are ways we can do that now and in the future, feel free to email any one of the Hawaii staff, call the office. We'll find a way to chat with you, and we'd love to hear your ideas. So for now, that's everything. Thank you so much for joining us again today. We'll look forward to seeing you in a future session. And take good care of yourselves, take good care of your students and your fellow staff members, and we'll see you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.